we are building the coolest Porsche 928 you'll ever see. Now that's entirely relative, but I believe it to be true. This week, we are working on the passenger side quarter panel. We're gonna weld this thing on. We already have the driver's side welded on, and last week we welded on the driver's side rocker panel. Now, on this side, we have some design work still going on down here. So we're gonna stay off of that, we're gonna work above it, and we're gonna get this thing fully attached, welded, and seamless. So let's get to it. Don't worry, we have new seals for this. These are old and junky, and we're changing the seal style anyway. It's a win-win. Snap myself in the head.
Double dutch.
I don't know how to like do any tricks. I don't know how to do like the. I'm already sweating. Oh yeah, and also we have a fuel door to contend with this time, and that makes it extra fun. Moving parts. Oh yeah.
So we forgot about the fuel door.
I wouldn't say we totally forgot about it, but in this moment we did.
Yeah, I did.
In this moment we did.
I forgot it was under there. 911s have them up there.
Yep.
Yeah, which we would still then have to contend with on a fender, but anyway.
Here we are here now. We have a fuel door, and one of the bigger challenges is we changed the body line and brought it up a little bit, which kind of like gets in the way. But I think with the way the fuel door sits, we can just bring the fuel door up higher as well.
Well, we were talking about, we kind of want to anyway. So as it moves out and the angle of this, we were talking about moving it, and then we also realized that also helps us with the body line.
So the plan is I'm going to cut this out with a nice lengthy fence around the outside to reuse the sheet metal and straighten it out if I need to. We're just gonna basically bring it out and up slightly and just add it to our quarter panel.
Integrate.
Integrate, yeah, we're gonna integrate it.
Yes.
Remember kids, no crack pipes allowed, all right? That's totally a crack pipe and not a match. Thanks 3M, protecting our children. It's time. This is like the hose for the fuel vapors to go through the charcoal canister. I'm just gonna crimp it off so we don't get any more fuel vapors for welding and stuff around here. Fuel tank will be safe here. It's definitely far enough away from everything I'm welding to not be an issue. But something to keep in mind if you're working on your own vehicle, to make sure that your fuel lines are capped off so you don't have vapors to burn, that you give yourself a good air gap between yourself and any fuel canisters or whatnot. Now, I could drop the fuel tank to work around it, but I'd really rather not, because I really need this to be here when I fit in the fuel door. And a lot of moving parts to drop in the fuel tank, including, I can't get it out right now anyway because the clay is in the way. So we're gonna work around it. Would recommend not doing that and actually dropping fuel tanks if you're gonna be welding around them. This is why we're gonna repaint the whole car and strip the bare metal before I paint it. Cause look at this. Right off. That's not supposed to happen. Look how many layers of material there are. There's filler, primer, filler, primer, filler, primer, filler, primer, filler, metal. What? I don't understand. Why was it prime so many times? All right, I got the metal cleaned up on the exterior now. I'm gonna ignore the back until I have to actually do that, because number one, I don't really want to do it. Number two, this is gonna trim back even further, so rather than cleaning excess undercoating unnecessarily, I'm not gonna touch it right now. Now is the fun part, where I gotta fit the quarter panel up all nicely with what we have here, and make sure that everything's copacetic height-wise and whatnot. And once that's done, we're gonna deal with this. The elephant in the room.
Yep.
I can't do an elephant noise. Delete that. I shouldn't even try.
That wasn't too bad, actually.
Thank you. I practiced for all of nothing. I didn't practice at all. The wheel on, we're gonna put the car back down, and now we're gonna do some final tweaking. The tweaking. But not crack pipe tweaking.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to. I'm out 8 inches exactly from the flange, and I'm down 10 3/4. And I'm pretty square. So if I go off the wheel, square to the car, 0 it, I'm out about 8 inches actually, and I'm down 11 actually, so I need to go up a little bit. Which I want to do anyway because this is a little low. So that all checks out. I'm happy with that. I'm sad I have to move things, but I'm happy because I need it to go up for this edge to be right. So what's happening here is I've determined the location of where I want to be. That means though I have to adjust this flange right here and kind of have it, right now it kind of like scoops in and out a little weird. So before I weld it on the car and it's a lot harder to work, I'm going to go ahead and shrink and stretch this edge a little bit to bring it out. I'm going to trim back the excess that's in my way for fitting it, just a little bit to start, and then we can start modifying the body of the car itself to come out to fit the quarter panel. And then once we get to the point that everything is lapped nicely, so that I can then scribe it, before I even scribe anything, we're gonna jump to the fuel filler and get that sorted. And just in case something moves around on me, I don't wanna cut everything back to a nice crisp butt weld and then have to be moved and then be all ruined. So measure 1,000,000 times, cut once, but cut 30 times also. Just don't cut so far that you can't add. Does that make any sense?
I'm gonna put that in words across the screen.
Yeah. Amen. Stretching here. And some down here. So you can see where the fuel filler neck is right here and the space that we need to fill. My thought here is I'm gonna put my hand to locate and then draw a circle on this side where the fuel filler neck is, so that I can cut that circle out. Then I'll oversize it a little bit, and then I'll take the piece I cut off that quarter panel and kind of locate it on here. And then we'll be able to see if this is even plausible. If it's not, we're gonna have to come up with something different. I think it's a good starting point. So that should get me about like this. So start extra small. I swear it makes sense. These are all educated guesses. This is educated guesses for success. This is. I like that one. Educated guesses for successes. And we just, there we go.
Nice.
We're done. Mold it up. That'll do. And then, yeah, I'll cut this back a little further so I can sit flush. And then I'll shape this nicely. Shape this nicely there. And we should be good to go. I mean, plus 80 other steps, but that's the basics of it. I think that's it. What do you think? Does it look good?
Yeah.
Location-wise? Reach your little mitts through here. Pull that off. Fill her up. Stab your hand on the cleat. Ow. Close her back up. There you go. Hit the road.
Nice.
Now let's make it seamless. It might end up being a little bit of a flat spot here, I don't know. But it's right above the body line, so
Right.
when it's sucked in, it should be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can shim or adjust the fuel door to change the rotation as needed, I think. Like this way,
Gotcha, yeah.
y'all.
Sure.
Yaw.
Yeah.
Yaw.
Yeah.
Adjust the yaw of it.
Yaw.
If I have to, based on you're shimming that or
Right,
when
yeah,
I'm welding
yeah,
in. So
yeah.
I'm not too worried about
Yeah.
that right now. Amos did point something out too, which is true, I think. There's no rubber, there's supposed to be rubber boot here. Right between the fuel funnel neck and the body.
Right. Yeah.
Which
We'll
I don't know
have
if the OEM will work or not still.
Right. We can make an adjustment for that, but
Yeah.
I think.
Because that should be done. Otherwise, it makes it look too much like a kit car, in my opinion.
Yeah, the empty hole there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where it has to go.
I kind of like it actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too.
Honestly, standing right here and looking at the gas
looking
and
at
stuff.
it right now, I feel good about it. It's just, I'm just trying to imagine it all painted and everything finished out, and is it going to?
So, when you're transplanting an object or a panel or whatever, a feature onto a vehicle, there's a couple things you should be doing to make sure that this goes well. Number one, when you have it set up on here, that everything flows nicely, and it does. There's no weird like transition, so I'm good there. The other thing you need to make sure is that your piece you cut out, you don't want to have sharp corners, you want to have rounded corners that spreads the heat out nicely. And also, now that I have it roughly cut out, I'm going to go through with the grinder and I'm going to kind of file the edges of this just to get a nice crisp square edge, because what happens when you just cut it, there's going to be variances in thickness on the edges, so I want to make sure it's completely uniform. You'd like some modern art?
Ooh.
I call this one Blue Haze. Go. Stay. It's scientifically proven if you point at an object and say stay, it won't go anywhere and you turn around. The same principle goes for like ratchet straps. If you twang them and say it's not going anywhere, it won't go anywhere. It took a lot of schooling to learn this skill. You ready? Yeah, a lot of not paying attention in school. Nice, crisp. You'll notice I left myself a bit of a margin around the fuel door, so I have room. Number one, there's room for heat to dissipate. Number two, it's not so far that it'll oil can a bunch. And number three, I have just enough room to slip a dolly in there to hammer and dolly it afterwards, because you always want to make sure whatever you're doing, you have rear access afterwards if you can. Now, obviously, there's situations you may not, and you have to work around that. But in this case, I will have rear access, so I need to make sure that I can make the best use possible of that rear access to the panel. There's our line, and this is why I use die-chem and a scribe, because they have a nice thin line. Now all I have to do is cut back right up against that very, very skinny line and not a marker line, and this should just pop right in. All right, now let's see if it fits. I ground it back to the edge of the scribe. You'll see I left two little tabs here to Clico to, so I can locate it. And then what I'll do is what I always do, which is slide a Sawzall blade and cut those tabs off as I go. But this will get it located first, which saves a lot of pain trying to clamp stuff up. Yeah, look at that. Now that's a cap right there. I gotta do a little bit of fettling here, but push that out from the back up top to pop it to where it needs to be, but there we go. The biggest thing I think is right here is a little tight. I think the hammer and dolly might even just push it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for right there when you're TIG welding. Could it be better? Sure. Does it need to be better? No. This is our Porsche buggy. It has a 2-liter from a Porsche 914, which is a 4-cylinder that puts out around 100 horsepower. We've had it in storage since the previous season, and now it's time to get it back out, put some parts back on it that we had borrowed, clean it up a bit, get the rear flares bolted back on, so that it can be driven around. So we're gonna do that really quick, take a little break from this. Pushing it back and forth so it's a nice, perfect plane. Spend the time now. Make sure you have a nice straight plane between the two panels. Don't have gaps like that. Push it up, or you're gonna have problems later. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna hammer and dolly what I can on the car quickly, then take it off and do some finish hammering or dolly work on the bench. And then we'll be able to grind the rest of the way and blend out the weld, and then it'll be virtually invisible. Not 100% visible, but close enough. So what I'm doing here is I'm hammering with a dolly directly behind the weld and hammering directly on the weld to try to stretch only the weld itself. When you weld something and it cools, it shrinks. So to get any of the deformation out of it, we gotta hammer and dolly directly on the weld again to bring it back. What do you think? Seamless enough?
Good.
Ow! That took way more oomph than I thought it would need. I think it looks good. We gotta do a little bit of tweaking. Yeah, I gotta adjust like how it sits and stuff like that, so this is like absolutely perfect right here. But I am very happy with that. Ow! I need to stop catching my fingers on sharp edges. I have a problem. That's step one, right? There's many layers to this art now. It's now the single drop plummets down the face of the blue haze. Gotta put my art up for Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you
that's
go.
good.
Yeah, that's good. That looks good.
I gotta sign it there, right? There we go.
Breathtaking.
I will begin the bidding at $69,000 for the blue haze with the single tier. No lowballers, I know what I have. So everything from like here back is probably not staying because the tail piece overlaps, and I have to decide where to equal opposite of that, but for now I'm gonna treat it like it's staying and weld it. Man, lunch is just like, hello. All right, so I got the back sides of the panel in the car ground back, got all the undercoating off at least about an inch or so to make sure that I don't have any fires or contamination being sucked into the weld. That is very important. Make sure that if you're doing this, make sure your panel's clean on both sides. Also, so last time I used one of these wheels, like the hamburger wheel, to remove the material, which is great, but I found because it's so fine, it actually like burns off the undercoating, which makes it extremely smoky in here, and it's probably not great to breathe, and probably why I had headaches like all week last week. So this time, I used this wire wheel, a brand new wire wheel in here, and it made great work of this. Chunked it right off. I always forget, like sometimes you have so many tools you forget what you have to use. It's me and object permanence. If I don't see it, I forget I have it. So now it's time to see if the quarter panel actually fits up, and if it fits up, we're gonna start jumping around and tacking it on, get it all tacked as we did for the fuel door. Then we're gonna blast this thing on and get her finished out.
Next week, we will be posting a video on Friday, March 17th, not our normal Saturday release. On that same day, we will also be announcing the winner of the free Eastwood TIG 200 LCD. In order to enter the contest, comment below what you would like to see on our channel that you haven't seen before. We really want to know, and hopefully, we'll get to use some of your ideas.
It's welded on. Now's for the fun part of planishing these welds. So typically when we do anything like this, I go over the process of setting up and welding it and don't touch too much upon the after welding treatment. Well, in this video, we're gonna do just that. We're gonna show you a little bit more in depth how I make these welds mostly disappear. I mean, the goal is for them to be like gone, but there's gotta be like that balance between time invested on it and the quality of work, right? That's a line that's like almost impossible to find ever. But the goal here is to get these welds to be pretty much gone so that when we do our skim and filler work at the end, it doesn't take much to get rid of it, and there's nothing that's gonna shrink in, and there's no pinholes and anything like that. So we're gonna blend out these welds, and the first thing that you need to know and get across into your brain is that whenever you weld something and it's metal, it expands when it heats up and it shrinks when it's cool. And when it cools, it shrinks more than it was in its original state. So, example A, right here, this weld across here, there's no structure or anything or shape that would keep this from buckling. So as you can see, if you shoot the camera down this out, whichever way you can kind of see, you can see how wavy that ended up. So the goal here is to get rid of that wave. And the only way to get rid of that wave is to stretch the weld itself back out so it can relax to where it originally was. Now this is a particularly bad spot because the gap between the two panels was a bit larger than I would have liked. You'll just have that on these bigger jobs, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do to tackle this is I'm going to take a hammer and dolly, I'm going to attempt to straighten it out a little bit, and then I'm going to grind the tops of the welds down so that they're not in the way. After that's the case, I'm going to hammer and dolly it consistently across the panel as much as I can to relax the panel back to where it wants to be. If I overstretch it, it's gonna oil can. If I understretch it, it's not gonna be straight. So this is where it's important when you weld to do a consistent thing. So I have a system down where I go through, I do a tack every roughly an inch to lock the two panels to be in the same plane to each other. And then after that, go through and blast from one end to the other end, trying not to stop in a single bead. Now there's times here I had to stop a little bit just because of it being a bigger gap and having to like ram filler rod in and stuff like that. But the goal was to try to keep it as consistent as possible, because if I'm consistent in how I weld it, then that means when I hammer and dolly it, if I consistently do the same thing across the panel and it's the right thing, it should all kind of just fall together. And that's something that you learn over time through practice. All right, so now if you look through here, across the straight edge, it's, I mean, within a credit card's width. That's good enough for a little bit of skim coat of filler and be good to go. I could go further with it, but that's a waste of time. That's 2/4 down. we're halfway done with the build. Not really. So this quarter panel is welded on. We have it planished out. There's a couple little things that need to be tweaked on it. We're gonna deal with that later. Now I have this rear spoiler piece just sitting on here just to kind of visualize everything. And that's kind of a tease as to what's coming up next week. Next week's video, we're going to be working on both spoiler and caps here, capping them off and kind of like finishing up the upper metalwork back here, and as well as working on the metalwork on the quarter panels to get everything fully dialed into where we like it to be. Also, just a reminder, March 17th is when we're announcing the winner for the Eastwood TIG 200 LCD, so make sure you get your entry in below. March 17th is also a Friday, so next week's video is coming out on a Friday in the evening rather than Saturday morning, so catch you guys then. Later.